Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, anywhere in the world that you may be. And welcome to the No Talks, which is brought to you by the United Nations Development Programme and the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Knowledge Foundation. My name is Stephanie Bustani from the No Talks team, and it is my pleasure to be with you today in this special edition of No Talks titled Museums, Preserving and Transforming Knowledge. And we are happy to be hosting with us Mr. Manuel Rabaté, Director of Louvre Abu Dhabi. Welcome, Manuel.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. It's a great pleasure to be there with Mohammed bin Rashid, the culture and research entity, and with the UNDP to share about the Louvre Abu Dhabi project within the idea of museum and knowledge. So I hope I will be able to give you a glimpse of our universe.
We hope so too, and we are so looking forward. Before we kick off, Manuel, please allow me with some housekeeping remarks for our audience. So first of all, our session will be fully delivered in English. However, we have interpretation into Arabic available, and also this time, and as of this time, we'll be having French interpretation available. So all you need to do is just click the interpretation globe on the bottom of your screen and access the language that you prefer. Also, if you have any questions that you would want me to ask Manuel in the Q&A segment, please make sure to drop them in the Q&A box, also in the bottom of your screen. The session is recorded, and the recording will be available on our Knowledge for All YouTube channel. And certificates of attendance will be sent to your registered emails within a week from this session. Okay. So here we are. Welcome, Manuel. Allow me to just introduce our audience to you, like briefly. Manuel, you are a graduate of Sciences Po and HSA Business School, and a Knight of France's National Order of Merit, and you have been the Louvre Abu Dhabi director since 2016, and you have been overseeing all the aspects of operations and activity at the museum since its inception. And before that, like, you were in Agence France Museums, and you joined that a year before the intergovernmental agreement between France and the United Arab.
Yeah.
A year after the intergovernmental agreement between France and the United Arab Emirates, where you were CFO in the beginning, and then Secretary General and CEO until 2016. And also before that, you were the Deputy Director of Cultural Development at Musée du Quai Branly-Jacques Chirac. We are very happy to have you with us, Manuel, and to hear from you about everything related to museums and knowledge, whether museums are shaping knowledge, or if they are shaped by knowledge, and like what is the future of museums, and all these interesting topics that really interest us. So I know you have a presentation. So
yeah, always topics. Stephanie, you stopped me. I will try to go quickly through maybe refreshing the audience on what Louvre Abu Dhabi is and on the project, just to put the context. But indeed, these questions are absolutely fascinating and I would say critical. And in a way, museums are about knowledge, about the conservation of knowledge, but also of the transmission. So in a way, we are spot on in your thematic. So what is specific to the Louvre Abu Dhabi? It is the fact that it is still a very new and young museum. We're going to celebrate in November our 5th anniversary. So myself, just to close up, thank you so much for what you described. It's always a funny moment when you see the years passing. I'm living in Abu Dhabi. I came to Abu Dhabi before being the director of Louvre Abu Dhabi in 2014. Before I was commuting from Paris all the time. So I'm really today strongly in this very changing and evolving territory. I'm trying to go to the next slide. Yeah, okay. You know where Abu Dhabi is and where Louvre Abu Dhabi, but we use this slide to remember the capital city of the UAE. And also this rendering is quite interesting because this is one of the most updated image of the Saadiyat cultural district. So as you know, Abu Dhabi is an archipelago, so you have many islands, and we are on Saadiyat Island in the district which is being developed and in which many museums. So Louvre Abu Dhabi is one of them. This is one of the angles that you see from one of the iconic projects, which is not a museum, but which is very close in terms of values of the museum. The Abrahamic house, family house, where you have a synagogue, a mosque, and a church on the same ground, looking at the museum. On the right hand side, you can see the fantastic building of Lord Foster that will be the Zayed National Museum. And I think that the angle is not good enough, but there is a Guggenheim Abu Dhabi, the Natural History Museum, and the Center of Curiosity. So a huge the place itself in which we are is contributing to the I would say to a huge transformation of equipment specialized in the preservation and the demonstration and the sharing of knowledge and culture. I will move to the next slide. Okay, sorry. Just this one is this is a too busy slide. Just to say, as knowledge takes time and needs the strategy and there are the same element of slow process. It's like coffee, you know, the maturation, the transmission requires time and also. So for Louvre Abu Dhabi, it took 10 years between the inception, so the starting of the treaty between France and Abu Dhabi to decide what would be done between the two countries together, up to the opening, which was, as I mentioned, 2017. So in 2022, today, we are in the 5th years after the anniversary. The building, so just before zooming to the content, it's very important to know where we are and so on. And also, there's something very important with our architect, Jean Nouvel, who is the absolute genius and who was rooted in the territory of the UAE, of Abu Dhabi, inspired by the palm tree. So we are also in a place which is helping to get also in this state of schooling, you know, of availability of it's a very beautiful and meditative place by the architecture and by the way the light would go through the dome. And so the museum, the mechanism of the museum itself is preparing the let's say the openness of our minds and brain. You can see here how it works. So this is a series of blocks, which are houses, like houses in a Medina, in a city, which are connected, which are creating the museum and its experience. We have piazza. You can get a little lost in the streets of the Louvre Abu Dhabi and the dome. If you dezoom and you see, we are on the sea from all angles. So it's really an island within the island, even if we are connected to the earth, not floating in the middle, but we are the museum is definitely facing the element, the sea, and the sun. In terms of narrative, and I will go very quickly because this is a full knowledge transmission which involved a visit to the museum. But just to give you something very specific, when we opened in 2017, it was the opportunity to refresh, to reinvent what is a universal museum. And by universal museum, we mean an encyclopedic museum. These museums, it's a concept which was born in the West at the 18th century, but which has traveled the world and which became, which has been adapted by each zone, each country, which digested the concept and reinterpreted, going to this idea of encyclopedic and knowledge approach. So it's like the book of the world. So you have artworks from all civilizations, from all period of time. To organize knowledge, we put them in a chronological order. So I will just guide you through and we start by questions. So the first room is dedicated to communalities, to open question. What do we human have in common? And how can European medieval Egyptian Isis or African statue question the maternity as a common element. So this is the starting point. And then we walk through times and we reinvent in the very core of the Arab world, in Abu Dhabi, we reinvent the connected history of humanity in the region. So we start by fantastic loan by our brothers of Jordan, from the Amman Museum, which is this Al-Hazain statue, which is one of the first very big representation of humans. And then we walk through times and we ask questions. So in the showcases, compared to the other, that's why Louvre Abu Dhabi is such a bold invention in Abu Dhabi. It's the capacity to bring artworks from different civilizations, but in the same showcases or in the same spaces on the same galleries. So you walk through time, it works like a time machine. So the knowledge is distributed and you can see at a given time what were the best expression of creativity of mankind, and how there are echoes, how some patterns, how some forms, some techniques, some materials, sometimes artwork, sometimes artisans themselves would travel and move, and how we share so many elements in our creativity. We have very strong anthropological and I would say civilizational approach as a way of structuring the experience of the visitor, but it is still a museum of art, of fine art, and visual art. So you see objects of beauty that allows you to experience these civilizations in exchange. This room is one of the most famous that we have, dedicated to the universal religion and to the capacity to, in respect, and to show the common and shared religious phenomenon translated through the most beautiful object from all religions. So, of course, the three religions of the books were put in total respect to each other, but also representation of other animism, Hinduism, and way of showing that we human may be different in different countries and different ethnical group or civilization, but we share this aspiration, and we can all understand, discover the other, understand. So everyone visiting Louvre Abu Dhabi will find something that's talking to his or her identity, and also from this point of, let's say, maybe a starting point or let's say or base of knowledge, you can also understand how the connection are made with the other identity. So the mechanism is extremely strong. You walk through the galleries again. This is a very big gallery that shows from China, the Tang, up to Europe, going through this region, through Central Asia, this region, and of course the Arab world and Venice and the connection. So how the pattern, how the rules of exchange, of knowledge, of trade were connected, and so on. We're moving toward the acceleration of time with the first globalization, when the 1500 something, the world is completely connected. So there are acceleration in the transmission of forms, and new routes are added, and we're finishing. So we're covering up to the modern time and contemporary time. Where we also have moment of focus of development, exhibitions. We have a beautiful Dragon and Phoenix in the day. We have a moment of knowledge. So we do Zoom. So we have this 6,000 square meters of permanent galleries, which are really a connected history of humanity throughout 12,000 years of history, more or less. And close to that, another space dedicated to temporary exhibitions, in which we would zoom in. So for 4 months, you have this was a beautiful one we had just before summer, stories of paper, and we can see the beautiful Emirati artists that we were able to show, and to show also the creativity of the region that we had. Sadly, it's a beautiful. It was the universal medium of paper, and how it could be an object of science, knowledge, beauty, and sometimes fragility. Voilà. Since the opening, we had, I'm not sure, 617, because since we spoke, there may be a little bit more, but basically, lot more than 3 million visitors, including, unfortunately, 3 years of little less dynamic visitation due to COVID and the regulation internationally. The knowledge transmission and the fact to work with the schools and with academia is also consubstantial of what we do since the opening. We're still a little under in terms of school visits and so on. And this is a thing that is starting again this morning. I could see so many little children in their shiny uniform going to the museum. But before the COVID, just at the peak, we were receiving between 25 to 35 group of children from different schools in all the UAE. Every day and every day, weekday. So we will get back to that. It's just a question. We also have on this question of transmission of knowledge. I think you may want to discuss on the definition of what is a museum and museum. So we are a museum of objects, definitely. So that's a given as an entry point. And objects have to be known. This is where the knowledge of the object and the understanding is very important. But also, museums of the magnitude of Louvre Abu Dhabi have also to integrate the reflection on the intangible heritage and how we can also collect memories and so we are welcoming senior emeritus, and we have programs for them to transmit and to tell the stories of the past. It's also a museum of inclusion and accessibility. This is something which is less visible than, of course, the numbers of visitors, and maybe tourists, or there may be schools, but the people of determination is also one of the very all the type of challenges that we may be facing. Each one needing a special strategy, and you can see here some of the demonstration that we had. It's also about the mechanism. We're very proud because the museum is completely accessible. So we're on one floor, except a few places which can be accessed, and the Universal Museum has to be universally accessible. And which means when you talk about knowledge, when you talk about transmission, it means that you need to build specific mechanism addressed, including to the people of determination who will need from the institution a special add-on. We don't have it, but we have a tactile. We have tactile stations to be able to, one of many, but to be able to audio description, to be able to compensate or to try to compensate some of the challenges. Each one requires a specific strategy. Voilà, and go the students, hundreds of thousands of students in the beginning. We have one part of the museum itself, beyond the permanent galleries and beyond the temporary exhibition, which is dedicated to transmission. It's a children's museum, which was part of the program, and it's a place in which we offer with a specific strategy to the children and to the educators. The question was to touch, and because the Universal Museum of this magnitude was a new addition to the very rich and developing family of cultural family of the UAE. Louvre Abu Dhabi wanted to offer this propedeutic space in which we would make it pleasant. Instead of saying to the parents, to the educators, you don't know, we wanted to make them, to give them the keys and to be the first one to talk to the children, so their children, and so the children, they had the responsibility. So the Children's Museum is built on soft gamification. So the children are playing games, but you cannot win the game if you don't look at the artworks. So all the games are built in order to educate the gaze and to allow the kids to have fun, but at the same time to sharpen their eyes and so on. It works quite well. This is some of the example. We also are working. It's more for the older children, the adult masterclass, and it's also part of the museum mission to allow access to the can be adults, can be children workshop to have the capacity to interact, to draw, to get creativity and visit. The oral narrative stories. repetition, but this is what we did in the very gallery. It was a beautiful moment of transmission in this picture. Again, that may be less important for our discussion, and maybe just to close it's a place to live and to enjoy. Books are part of the transmission, and we are a very active publisher since the opening. And it's interesting, Stephanie, what you were saying on the translation. This is one of the key challenges of a place which is sharing a message on art history and connected history. It's a number of languages and how we can do. The signage is made in Arabic, of course, in English and in French, and we have 7 languages in total in the audio guide, free to download. For us, important that people can get in as many languages. Each language is a full project in itself, but adding language, getting close to the population visiting us is extremely important for us. That's more on if you want us to talk a little bit of the digital transformation that we had, and how do you reach out with the content during and that will be it. At the Louvre Abu Dhabi team, which is itself, and maybe that will be the last word to keep some place for some room for questions, is the Louvre Abu Dhabi project and up to the opening and then operation in itself was about transmission and building capacities. Our staff is composed for half of the staff is composed of UAE nationals and some building on the curatorial content, programming, so on the real content. So this is developing the content of the museum, nourished by the specific of a museum. And some are all the other jobs that you have in the museum, in which it's the same job that you would have in any other place receiving public, except there are specific content. So the security, the marketing, and all the jobs you could imagine in a huge city receiving thousands of visitors every day. You have a huge palette of specific job, and they need to be transposed in the museum. So in a way, Louvre Abu Dhabi works as a training ground, as a development ground, and even myself, we're learning every day by having this new equipment in the region. Voilà. I hope I covered it all. The best way is to come and visit, of course.
You did. Thank you so much, Manuel. This is really fascinating. Like the Louvre Abu Dhabi, I'm a big fan of it personally, and a fan of museums in general as well. It is interesting, like how you said that this is a universal museum, like it is telling the story of the world, and it is in the Arab region. So it is not like a branch of the Louvre or anything. It is an entity in itself, and it is present here and it's accessible. And access and accessibility of knowledge is really important, and sometimes it's more important than knowledge itself.
Absolutely.
Yes, and you mentioned translation and interpretation, and we are having many interventions and questions in French this time, so which warms our heart. Like for the first time, we have the French interpretation, so that's good. I will start with
if I may just rebound on what you just said. What is very important, and when you talk to the French people, and when you talk in the region, there is a mirror effect. It's to imagine that the Louvre Abu Dhabi is composed of two very strong names. One is Louvre, the other is Abu Dhabi, and they go together. So with Louvre, you have the root of let's say the biggest, one of the oldest museum of the world, encyclopedic approach, a source of knowledge, and so on. But Abu Dhabi is the capital city, and it's also a hub of the world. It's the UAE. It's and if you go concentric circle, it's really yes, Abu Dhabi, the full UAE. You know that we have artworks from the 7 Emirates. It is the Khalij, the Gulf. It is the Arab world. It is also the Muslim Islamic art identity, which is in the artistic field extremely important, and goes even beyond the Arab world. And so all these circles are the identity of the territory we are in. And you see that in the collections which are presented. So it's not an abstract talking about transmission. It's not an abstract discussion on what could be art history. We have books. We have fantastic books. We have fantastic art history in university. But in the Louvre Abu Dhabi, we do it with artworks, and we do it rooted here. Just to amplify what you were saying.
Great. And I'll be coming back on the books and this like knowledge transfer and knowledge production at museums. So the first question that I would like to ask you is, do you think that art and museums are shaping the knowledge landscape, or are they shaped by it?
I think it's a double. I think it's a double. It's a double relationship. It's not. Yeah, it's a question of feedback on retro, on the museums are places where you not all museums, but we are saving and presenting beautiful artwork from all civilizations. But we tell a story, so we need to have access to the knowledge on the artwork. By exhibiting them, by creating this relationship, by exerting science, by making them, we are also developing the knowledge. So it's like it's a chicken and egg. It's really it's extremely it's a very not chicken and egg maybe it's a very positive circle of progression and feeding. So by accessing, by knowing more, we can have a better experience on the visitor experience, which allows them to. So I think it's completely connected, and feeding both loops are feeding themselves.
Great. What can museums and art do in a time of crisis? So, like we have had the COVID, for example, like
like every human organization, what can they do? Like first survive and redefine your raison d'être. I think that it affected many organizations in the world and many group of humans to question how deeply does it affect us? Does it break our needs to be and to operate? That's the first defensive moment, which was then the opportunity. I don't think we can have an opportunistic approach of a crisis, but I think that the crisis is forcing us to go back to what we really need. And I think a museum is part of the society, part of the social fabric, national social fabric, international social fabric, and they are absolutely necessary for the resilience and for the understanding and for the aspiration. And you saw our wonderful dome, you see this extremely elevating stories of humanity connected. I think that in a way it can contribute, especially in the world which is tense, maybe to say the less, these days, having a very strong country like the UAE able to present an aspirational narrative in a very beautiful and meditative place, and giving all the branches of humanity a chance to shine with the most beautiful representation of human creativity. I think is a contribution to the healing, soothing desire to hear each other and to exchange. So I think in there are several crises going on, and I mean we're not we can talk only about what we manage, which is a museum world, but this museum is, I think, taking its share of the resilience, of the shared resilience of the society.
Yes, and of course, museums and art, like they have, like we all know how they are like used as also therapy tools and like recovery tools.
Totally. When we reopened, so we managed to close only for 100 days in 2020, and since we have not closed anymore. Also, we had regulations, we had some control, but we always managed to stay open, and we did huge digital outreach. And so. But when we reopened, the motto that we gave to the reopening was mindful. So it was the listening museum, the museum that would take care and that would give voices. And again, I'm going back to the experience. If you want to learn, if you want to know, if you want to have your curiosity, you need to, the experience has to open to you. And if you want to give this to the maximum number of people, you need to be well intended. So we the mindful museum, and that was the campaign, and it's still one of the value of the museum that we are very proud of doing, and the inclusivity approach, the capacity to listen is extremely important. We're also working on this is a field of knowledge itself. It's the relationship between medicine and the museum and art, and it can be art therapy. It can be there are many. So we are experimenting a lot on this front also to see. We're taking part of the art therapy days with workshop experience. So I really think that the artistic world and the museum as an institution, as a place, as a role to play. Nobody will take the role of the medical team of the hospital, but you can definitely integrate the artistic experience, the museum experience within the therapy.
Okay. So you know how this thinking about museums as like static places and just telling us history, and like they are stuck in one place. But in your presentation, we have seen the complete opposite of this.
I hope so. I hope so.
And how they are really like how they have museums have evolved. And so our question is, how can, like, you have told us this in your presentation, but if you can give us like a short summary on how can traditional definitions of the museums be transformed?
You know, there has been a big discussion on the definition of a museum within the International Council of Museums, and I was in Kyoto in 2019, just before COVID. The organization was having a rough time on trying to redefine, because there was a beautiful functional definition before, and so the organization couldn't agree, and in Prague in August, so every 3 years the organization is meeting. I was lucky to be there too, and the organization has developed a new definition, which I got it here. It's a museum. It's a non-for-profit permanent institution in the service of society that researches, collects, conserves, interprets, and exhibits tangible and intangible heritage. Open to the public, accessible and inclusive, museum foster diversity and sustainability. They operate and communicate ethically, professionally, and with the participation of communities, offering varied experience for education, enjoyment, reflection, and knowledge sharing. So I think these definitions are actually extremely compatible or close to the UNDP, the UNSG objective, and so the definition of the museum as a powerful tool serving the society, all of these fields, especially in the knowledge and building of the society, I think it's absolutely key. So the Louvre Abu Dhabi is not redefining alone this. There is a huge so the debate is global. What is important is what do you do in each territory, in each place, and where are you in your social fabric, and where are you in your museum fabric or museum offering. So in the UAE, we have very active scenes, and it's developing a lot. So the scene is transforming itself with every emirate has their institution, their strategies, their places which will bet more on the network of Museum Sharjah is incredible with its opening. Ras Al Khaimah, Ajman, all the emirates have their elements. The Dubai also is very rich. In Abu Dhabi, we have inside the island this we have the Align Museum, which is a great which was created before the UAE. 69, so before the union, but Louvre Abu Dhabi and the other museum I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation are reshaping, let's say, a critical mass of gathering the knowledge. So having a museum that tells the story of the world, which is Louvre Abu Dhabi, with the UAE identity in it, having a museum which is explaining the story of the UAE, which is the Zayed National Museum, having the Guggenheim Abu Dhabi exploring modernity and contemporary and the changes of the modernity that the contemporary time we're living in, having a natural history museum with the knowledge, which back in the days, in the encyclopedic approach, there was sometimes a mix between the beauty of the world made by the humankind and the one made by nature, and it's important to be able to tackle both, the wonder of both. I'm trying to keep all this together. So we are not changing the definition. I think we are giving a meaning to the definition in Abu Dhabi. So this is what we're participating to, which is fleshing out, offering to the community this access to knowledge in a things which on one side is the experience that you can have, so access, experience, and so on. On the other is what you don't see when you're a visitor, but which is how do you fuel this experience by a lot of research and connection to the content. You need to go deep.
With this transformation of the meaning of the definition of museums, I'd like to ask you, what and who are museums for in the end of the day? What do you think?
Everybody, everybody. No, it's very important. I think His Highness Mohammed bin Zayed, when he opened the Louvre Abu Dhabi, he said it's a gift to the world. I think it's given. It's for. So we have segmentation, we have strategy, we have segments, and all of them requires a specific approach. But a museum is for everyone. We are universal. It's universally accessible. So in the UAE, in our territory, it's very important, of course, that the UAE national. It's an investment in the national. Accessibility to knowledge and to masterpieces and so on, but it's also for the resident, all the 200 nationalities living in the UAE. It's also fantastic tools for attractivity. So that's the opposite of knowledge, but very important in terms of sustainability for a city is its capacity to be integrated into touristic flow, but also attractivity as a competitive cities, and all of this goes together. For me, what is very important is not to let anyone down. So the art is for everyone, and the mechanism that we put in place. So I was showing you people of determination and how you make access, how you do the extra methods to bring people in. When you invite elderly from Fujairah and Ras Al Khaimah, when we bring them, it's not the same thing than when a tourist bus is coming and so on. But it's very important. It's necessary to do it and to share that. When we are putting in the Children's Museum a masterpiece like our Magritte, so it is at the level of the children. It's one of the key masterpieces of the children. But we give it because we believe the education is important. When we we did several times the operation of still going on of the taxi drivers. We know so. We know for them it's we're talking about different barrier. I don't want to come. I don't know. And there is also the accessibility for the price. And we made one in uniform. If you come with your card, +3 for free. That's moment of giving a chance for everyone to access. So this universal accessibility, I think it's also part of the generosity of the country and part of the values of the museum. So. We still charge the ticket. We need to function as an organization. Don't get me because we need to have the sustainability of the effort and doing all this requires resources. But within this strategy, we have an active, proactive strategy to make sure that the people who would not necessarily come or would never not know, not have access, not feel that it is their own, and we're working on that. And this is important for the community. So to sum up, for everyone, with love and sometimes with effort to make sure we're reaching out.
Great. So it's a museum for everyone, and museums are for everyone. You have mentioned that you had to close for 100 days during the pandemic. And that sort of defeats your raison d'être or your reason for existing. So how did COVID-19 accelerate the digital transformation of museums? And was that sustained?
Yeah, you're reminding me painful moments. Sorry, I don't take it as an Indeed. You pointed exactly straight to the point. Especially Louvre Abu Dhabi, which is a museum of connection and showing basically we are saying that the exchanges between mankind, between humans, between civilization, between people is bringing a value, and that through these exchanges we can. So when you stop cold the exchange and you stop it, it was exactly on our DNA that the blow was put. I mean, the world was completely touched. We're not alone in our suffering, and I know there are places which have been even more challenged by that. For us, there was an extra challenge, which was due to our youth. We were between second and third year, and that's very difficult. At the moment, you should be in the cruise speed and beyond the opening, which is always a great energy, but the stabilization of the organization when you are hit by something as brutal as COVID, I think that for major, big, old institutions, I'm talking about museums, it was already a blow. But for us as a young one, it was extremely challenging. But because we were a team of project, we are still completely in a project mode. That's why we managed to stay closed such a short amount of time and to reopen one of our new projects was getting back reopen during the closure, taking care of the artwork. And indeed, so I'm going to where you are. It's using during the closure, using the technology to reach out to our visitors. So most of the workshop, most of the education strategy, most of the tools that we had, we had many tools. It was a mind opener, eyes opener for us, because most of the tools were actually locally based. So we needed to translate. We needed to do a shift to make sure that we could outreach through the digital channel for the visit, so a little bit of translation or technical adaptation was needed. We've done it very energetically, and we managed to accelerate our own digital transformation. In our museum, we believe in the materiality of the object. So the digital was always used, never in between you and the object, always on the side to help you to understand, also to propagate, to develop, to leverage on your knowledge, on the science, on the understanding, or just on the enjoyment, because we have musical visits. But we never see the tool in between. The in between is for the content, for the understanding, but the tool doesn't come. So when you don't have access to the primary objects, you can still use the technology to understand. But it makes sense only when you can go and see the artworks again. So long story to go to the point of your question, which is what did remain? I think that we accelerated, we produced, and we were challenged in the way we were producing our content on our educative and storytelling content. So from these challenges, I think we really been imaginative and innovative, and now we reinjected this creativity and this methodology in the experience that we have when you come back to the museum, or on the things that you can have before or after the visit to keep on having this relationship. So I showed very quickly, but we have the Pulse of Time, which was a great movie, which was based on the audio description of the. So we made a visual version of an audio description that we had, that you could. So you can listen the text. You can listen to the text in the galleries, and that would guide you through the history of mankind. Or you could see it on your computer, on your phone, on your projection, on the movie theater. If you can have the same experience. Both can work together. What was very important for us is that the hybrid experience could be possible, because there was a Zoom fatigue, and still it's great to be connected. I hope next time we're receiving the UNDP will be physically in the museum, because we also need this interaction. So I believe in the hybridity. So I believe in the tool. I don't think the tool is the end of the strategy. I believe the tool has to serve the strategy of education or enjoyment.
Yes, I also prefer technology as an accompaniment, but not as like the enabler itself. For
absolutely,
yes,
absolutely. The technology, the audio guide, I'm the next step, because we're developing a lot of content orientation. So I think, especially with this little people like we all the phones on the miniaturization, and I really think that technology can be like your personal usher, or a digital approach, or a way to personalize the way you work. But it's something that enhances your understanding, your experience, your something you want to go back later on, personal footnote, or pure pleasure, and you can share that with others, or you can experience it on your own. This is the museum. This is one of the traits of the museum of the future: the capacity to have still curated, because I think it's not just a random experience, it's still curated, but with the capacity to decide what kind of stories you want to be told, what kind of experience you want to live, what kind of knowledge you want to be given. I believe in both high science, and at the same time capacity to enjoy and to play and to move between several levels of knowledge.
Greatly put. I'll push it a bit more in terms of technology, and you're having many questions regarding this. What is the thought of museums vis-a-vis the metaverse? Are you thinking about that?
The metaverse. Alors, okay. I'm an old person now. I was reading Neuromancien on the cyberpunk book when I was a teenager. So I believe in the metaverse as an interface, and I believe there is a lot of promising ground on the interoperability, visualization, application, and so on. I wonder is there not an overreacting between the real experience and the the products or the experience which is delivered, the promise and the experience which is delivered today or on the short term. I don't want to. I think the curated experience will remain. I think that the data source are today more important than the interface. Metaverse, it's an interface that makes it look as also. And maybe on a more philosophical point of view, I think that we are living in a world where we are full of images. We are bombarded with images. The social networks are about images. So they're already, we don't need that much the metaverse to be in a overconsumption of images. So we can develop the quality of the feed of the images. But what will make us better human is the capacity to decipher these images, to organize them, to give them meaning, to put them in perspective, to sometimes to go a little less slower onto the capacity, and this comes definitely from education, from development also. So I think so I don't think the metaverse can take over the museum. I think it can be one new edition in and we're brainstorming a lot with my team on the, you know, André Malraux, le Musée Imaginaire, Abbey Warburg, Atlas Memory. So the usage of technology to multiply the image and to get all the artworks of the world has always been there as a temptation. The Grand Tour, people coming, copying Italy or Greece, the masterpieces rediscovered. So the transmission of images on the need to gather them close to you has always been there. What is important is how do you educate your gaze? How do you have the real connection? And that's why the physical, the proposition which is given by a place in which you are in the same physical space and an artwork, and the way you get there, the way it is curated around it is absolutely key, I think, for me. And I'm not saying it's one against the other, but I'm saying I'm holding my horses on the metaverse until it can help me proposing this education of the gaze. If it does, fantastic. It will be another chapter in a very big book of mechanical reproduction of images. If it is not, it will be just a block in a digital, sometimes frantic.
Okay, we are running out of time. Maybe I can ask one, maybe two more questions. In the famous historian Horst Predicam's 2001 essay, the essay title is "No Museums Without Research, No Research Without Museums." So what is your take on this, and how can the museum be a site of knowledge production?
Yeah. Horst Predicam is based in Germany and in Berlin. Great scholar, knows very well the museum world at the same time. It's funny because this essay is now sort of coined chiasma, and absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I think I was mentioning it with a circular approach between the museum are having collections or tangible or intangible, but collect object of meaning or physical object and these objects are presented to the visitor. That's a raison d'être, collecting, protecting, and offering them to the visitors. They cannot do it if they don't know what they're talking about. So the museum without the foundation is it can be your taste, it can be my taste, it can be things I like to put together and so on. But the process of a museum is to be rooted in the knowledge, in the why. We're asking questions, so we need to be rooted. And at the same time, the fact that we are working with the object, we are working with the narrative, is giving opportunities for the research to develop and to work on. There are encounters. There are also you know in Louvre Abu Dhabi we have we're building. That's one of the things which was a little stopped by COVID, but we are now finally reaching out to this stage, is to have a full lab be a pole of excellence, connected to the university, not alone, because we cannot be alone. It's about the network, but to know more about the materiality of the artwork, to study them, it goes from the image, you know, when you scan all the very fantastic when you talk to our scientific team, how the pigments, the fragility of the material, the capacity to understand it's from chemical, from the materiality, from just to understand the story of the object. So all of this is the same environment. So to be able to tell a clever, consistent story, you need to have a lot of research behind, and through the accessibility of these artworks, you give opportunities for the research to keep on. So this cycle is extremely substantial, and for the Louvre Abu Dhabi, this is one of our key elements. We had access to this knowledge when we built this narrative, and we worked with the French Museum, with the museum in the UAE, with the museum in the Arab world, and so on. We had access to that. That allowed us to tell us this universal story for here. Then these objects are there, and we have developed some very interesting angles, and we know it's feeding the research on us, and then the museum can grow and still develop. So yes, yeah.
Manuel, you have touched on like the last question I wanted to ask you. So I wanted to ask you about like how important are partnerships and collaboration with universities? How important are they for
critical? Critical. We are in a world of limited resources. Even if we have been blessed to have access to resources to build Louvre Abu Dhabi, but it would be the wrong way to try to do everything alone. On the contrary, so it's not even a constraint. It's a positive, collaborative, and by our DNA is to be collaborative at Louvre Abu Dhabi. So we are extremely close to the academic network. We know it's about exchanges and so on. So we have a great relationship with many universities in the UAE. The New York University Abu Dhabi is we just signed an MOU with them just close by. The Sorbonne Abu Dhabi is also very close to us. But the university in Al Ain is also the UAE University in Al Ain is also a partner. Zayed University, so the Sharjah University. So we're really interfaced. And when I say interface, it's not only at the institutional level, it's about the student that will be hired after their graduation. It's about researchers that come with a field study to work with us, about us hosting, receiving, and this is a network on research program, actual research program, which are done on the artworks. And all of this is absolutely critical because this is a when we quote Horst Bredenkamp, how does it work? It works when the museum and the university and the teacher, student, PhD, postdoc, and so on are connected.
It's a whole ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Publishing, etc. We had a fantastic symposium during COVID with NYUAD on the notion of the museum, and at the core, at the really moment the world was blocked, we managed to have one of the most important reflection moments on the power, on the fragility of museums in this context, and on the narrative. Very beautiful collaboration. So it's about the object, and it's about the knowledge of history of art, knowledge of the institution. So all of these fields are shared with a chemical approach. The guys are fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Manuel. This is a wrap for this Snow Talk. It's already 1 o'clock here in the UAE. Thank you, Manuel, and hopefully next time we'll meet in the Louvre Abu Dhabi live there.
Yeah, I hope we'll welcome you and all the audience of the UNDP talk in Louvre Abu Dhabi very soon.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for the Louvre Abu Dhabi team, and happy anniversary in advance.
Thank you. Yes, November, the full month. The full month.
Full month. Okay.
Amsa. Thank you so much.
Our calendars. Thank you, Manuel. Thank you also for the No Talks team, for UNDP, MBRF, the interpreters, social media, and also just a quick note, happy birthday for our team member, Miriam.
Happy birthday. Thanks for the No Talk team.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.